Right now, I'm challenging myself to see if I can make 128 Regulation H teams that are each different from one another over the course of 128 days. Why 128, you might ask? At the end of the 128 days, we're going to do something special where we battle every team against each other in a single elimination bracket to see which team emerges on top. There will be some competitively strong teams, there will be some gimmick teams, and there will be some probably a good number of goofs and gaffs in there, so if you want to follow through to the end, subscribe so that you can keep up with each day. But without further ado, let's move on to day 1. Welcome to the first team in the 128 teams challenge. I'm very excited about the challenge in case the intro didn't state that correctly. But this is our first team that we've got here. It's the team that I've been using, and it's apparently the crowd favorite for whenever I do the beat me in battle, take my Pokemon streams. But this is the team that I referred to as the Sand team, but it's really more of a Trick Room team, depending on which side you're using it for, but it can very much be either or. Let's just go over the Pokemon that we've got. Starting off with Tyranitar. Tyranitar is going to be your premier Sand setter Pokemon in Regulation H. We've got a pretty simple moveset here. You click your Rock Slide to get stab rock moves, you click your Knockoff because that was unlocked with Tyranitar in one of the later DLCs, so that's a new tool for Tyranitar to have, and it's a very strong dark type move, and it lets you knock off your opponent's items, as well as you have the Stomping Tantrum to give yourself a little bit of coverage. And since we are rocking the Clear Amulet, sometimes you'll see Assault Vest on Tyranitar, but we're going to use Clear Amulet. We can't afford to run or Protect. Next up, we have a Blast from the Past Hisuian Arcanine hitting the field, doing very similar things to Tyranitar, except completely different. We still do have that Rock Slide just because it's such a strong base power rock type move, but we have our Stab Flare Blitz, which hits super hard into anything that is super weak to it. We also have the Extreme Speed in order to give us the +2 on anything that we might need to pick up a KO that wants to go for a +1 priority move against us. It means that Extreme Speed makes it a lot easier to KO those things, especially with the Choice Scarf. It means you're extreme speeding other extreme speed users, and that's pretty extreme. And lastly, you have a bit more type coverage in the Psychic Fangs. Now, Psychic Fangs does help you beat a few of the niche fighting types, so if you're going to use this team on a closed team sheet format, it is a little bit easier to get Arcanine in there. You do have a lot of Pokemon on this team that can help you deal with fighting types, but sometimes with Arcanine, it's nice to have that one surprise tool. You could also justify running Grass Terra type and then using Grass Terra Blast. But for this Arcanine, we're just going to keep it Psychic Fang. The Psychic Fangs can help you get rid of screens, which nothing else on this team does. And then with our Intimidate ability in combination with the Sand from Tyranitar, Intimidate lowers attack and the Sand raises our special defense, so we can make Arcanine a little bit tankier, and it can survive some scenarios which we previously could not survive with an Arcanine. Third on the list, we have a very, very predominant Pokemon in Regulation H. We've got Rillaboom. This is a pretty classic Rillaboom set. Not much to really talk about here. We've got the Fake Out for priority and flinching. We've got the Grassy Glide, which is pretty much the Rillaboom move. As well as we've got the Wood Hammer to do insane amounts of grass-type damage. And we have the U-turn for whenever we want to pivot out. Next up, we have Primarina here. Now, Primarina is a pretty fun Pokemon because what you can do with its Liquid Voice ability is that you can make your Hyper Voice a Water-type move, which is actually an even stronger Surf, and it's a Surf that doesn't hit your partner. So it's a really good water type move to have, and we have the Mystic Water to further boost the power of that water type move, and then we have our single target Moonblast for dealing massive fairy damage, and then we also have the Ice Beam in case a grass type wants to switch in on us, or it makes it easier to deal with like flying types and other quirky things like that. Fifth on the list here, we have Indeedee Female, another really predominant Pokemon in Regulation H, or at least that's what I'm expecting, because you're going to be setting up your Psychic Surge with Indeedee Female. And the Psychic Surge is going to activate your Psychic Seed, which helps you increase your special bulk, at least on the first turn that you're in battle, which will come into play with what we're talking about with Hatterene. We have the Terra Fairy type in order to even further increase our resistances, as Fairy does resist Dark, which is the only thing that Indeedee is weak to. As well as we have Psyshock to help us deal some Psychic type damage, and it is worth noting, just in case you don't know, that Psychic Surge doesn't increase the damage of your Psychic type moves, but Psyshock can help you catch some of the physical tanks off guard and target their weaker special attacks. So there's a lot of moves that you could swap in for Indeedee, but we're just using Psyshock here. As well as we have our support set, which is the Follow Me to redirect single target attack, as well as Helping Hand to increase the damage of partner Pokemon, and we also have the Protect in case we don't want Indeedee to get hit for a turn. And with no Urshifu in the format, things are looking pretty good for Protect Indeedee. Last but not least, we have a real Kingpin. Actually, it's more like a queen pin. We have a real queen pin on the team here, which is the Hatterene. Hatterene is going to be using Dazzling Gleam and Expanding Force to deal massive amounts of spread damage, especially when you have your Psychic Terrain up with Indeedee. It's very easy to just lead Indeedee Hatterene and get Hatterene to set up the Trick Room, which will invert speed. And since Hatterene is so slow, it means that next turn, Hatterene is going to keep moving first. Indeedee will be allowed to Helping Hand Hatterene, so it gives you a lot of offensive pressure as long as you can get that Trick Room up. It is worth noting that with Expanding Force, though, that if you're ever in a situation where you have Indeedee Hatterene on the field and you want to switch in Rillaboom for whatever reason, that your Expanding Force will no longer become dual target, so that is one of the kind of anti-synergies of this team, is having two terrain setters. But it works out more often than not. We also have Mystical Fire as a pretty good tech move, as Terra Fire helps you resist steel types, which is pretty important, but it also makes you neutral to poison. And we get the fire type stab boost on the Mystical Fire, so there's a lot of steel types in the format that you can try to knock out with the Mystical Fire that aren't getting knocked out by Dazzling Gleam and Expanding Force. And as we already talked about, we got Trick Room. Your Magic Bounce ability is very handy for things like a Moongus with Spore that wants to try and put you to sleep. You can just say no. This is a game that I pre-recorded. I don't want to pre-record a lot of these games in these future videos, but I'm a bit short on time today. So I see that my opponent has quite a variety of mons here. Can really stop Indeedee Hatterene from getting set up. My opponent also has the King Gambit, which is a really hard thing to deal with Indeedee Hatterene. If we don't get the Mystical Fire, just one-hit KO it, the special attack drop will activate its Defiant, and that's not a good thing. So I decided to read Rillaboom Hatterene in order to try and stop that a bit, and my opponent leads Primarina Corviknight, which is a pretty good starting lead for us. Primarina is going to protect at first turn, and I tried to fake out into it just in case I decided to like Terra or something and attack Hatterene. I really didn't want that happening. And Corviknight doesn't have... This was Open Team Sheet at the time, but Corviknight I don't think actually had anything that could hurt Hatterene. I think it was like Bulk Up Body Press or something along those lines. Yeah, there's the Corviknight bulk up. So I get up room with Hatterene, and I decide to Terra Fire in order to get rid of the Corviknight with Mystical Fire. The Primarina goes for Hyper Voice, and that takes Hatterene down by a bit. But Rillaboom goes for Wood Hammer, and that takes out Primarina. They decide to bring in King Gambit and Rillaboom, so in order to stop them from sucker punching Hatterene or clicking Fake Out with Rillaboom, I decide to switch in Indeedee, and Indeedee's going to change Grassy Terrain to Psychic Terrain. Sucker Punch tries to go into Hatterene, it does not pick up KO, and we actually get a crit with Hatterene. I'm not sure how much that Mystical Fire crit mattered there on the Rillaboom, but at this point the game is pretty much over. I don't remember what the third Pokemon I brought here is, but I would be willing to bet it's probably Primarina, and since the Rillaboom was gone, Primarina was pretty easily, probably could just handle the King Gambit pretty fine. Alright, so this here is the second game, and in this game, I'm willing to gamble that they're going to lead with King Gambit instead, since I was willing to lead with Hatterene. Looking into what they led, I led Arcanine and Tyranitar, because I was pretty confident that I would be able to use Arcanine to get rid of King Gambit, but they actually don't lead King Gambit, they lead Primarina again, but this time Chandelure, which is a little strange. We didn't see Chandelure in the last match, but I don't think Chandelure had anything really aggressive against us. But they do swap in King Gambit here, and they protect with Arcanine, and I'm willing to try and get the Rock Slide to deal damage into Primarina, and the Rock Slide in order to deal more damage into Primarina, perhaps. Kind of risky to just sacrifice Arcanine there, but if I ever needed to bring Arcanine back in and King Gambit was on the field, it would activate King Gambit's Defiant ability, so I might have been doing myself an actual favor in the long run there, and getting the Rock Slide damage on Primarina, it was still pretty valuable. But we actually missed the Rock Slide with Tyranitar here, and since Primarina protected itself, I'm going to be able to swap out Arcanine here to bring in Rillaboom. We take that much damage from Hyper Voice, but because we missed the Rock Slide, we get the double damage Stomping Tantrum, which allows us to KO King Gambit in one hit, which at the time I was not expecting, but I was perfectly fine with the result, because I could probably just Wood Hammer with Rillaboom for the rest of the damage that I would need, but it caught me a little off guard to see Stomping Tantrum KO King Gambit there in one hit. But continuing to play this out, Chandelure doesn't want to get KO'd, and I think they're expecting me, yeah, they're just expecting whatever fake out to come out from Rillaboom, so they're preparing for that. And I think I expect Primarina to go Terra Grass here, so I'm going to counter that play, yeah. I countered that play by going for U-turn, and Primarina has no physical bulk really, so the U-turn is going to do a lot of damage to it. And then I bring in my own Primarina, who doesn't take very much damage from the Heat Wave. Primarina goes for Moonblast, and that does pick up the KO on Tyranitar, even though we have Sand Up, because Primarina has a special attack. But at this point, I feel like the game is pretty much over, because Arcanine's Rock Slide is going to probably do enough damage. We can Rock Slide Chandelure super easily. Pretty much takes it out in one hit because of the crit. And even if it was a crit, Hyper Voice from Primarina would help pick up the KO. But now it is Primarina and their Rillaboom versus the world. And they kind of concede because it would be really easy for me to just cycle out Arcanine in order to deal with their Rillaboom. And their Primarina is a grass type, so I can just click Flare Blitz with Arcanine whenever Arcanine comes back and we're not in any kind of real danger. Okay, seems like our opponent is using a pretty standard Trick Room setup here, and we do have a good bit of counter to their play, but I am a little concerned about Dusclops. Their Dusclops is Terra Ghost, so I think I'm going to have to lead Tyranitar here, and Tyranitar Primarina allows me to do the most spread damage, so I think I'm going to do that. And then in the back, we really value, I think, our own Indeedee and Hatterene here, so let's see how this works out. They lead Incineroar Dusclops. Okay, pretty good lead for us. I had to guess, though, Clops is going to try and get off the Trick Room, and it's probably going to get it off successfully. Let's knock off and Hyper Voice here. As they fake out into Tyranitar, the Hyper Voice, that does a good amount of damage. Tyranitar is flinched, and Dusclops gets up the Trick Room. So now the problem kind of becomes that, like, if I knock off the Dusclops, it means that Torkoal is probably going to come in, and we don't want Torkoal to come in yet, because I have to sack something to get Tyranitar back in, so I think I'm going to Nightshade, Haze, Skill Swap. Oh, we could Skill Swap the Torkoal. I think we just knock off and Hyper Voice to KO both. So knock off is going to take out Dusclops, and Hyper Voice is going to take out Incineroar, and now that those two are off the field, we can just afford to protect Stall in order to get rid of the Trick Room. Oh, and my opponent actually just gives up now that their Pokemon have fainted. Excellent. Okay, game 2. How does my opponent shake up this matchup here? I don't really know how they do. Because, like, if I lead Tyranitar and Primarina, and they, like, Ursaluna is the only thing I could see coming out in the front, but Ursaluna isn't going to get Guts on the first turn. So what are they going to do? I just lead Tyranitar and Primarina again. And then life is good. I'm going to try and bring Rillaboom this time, and Rillaboom can maybe Terra Fire instead. Okay, they lead Indeedee Dusclops this time. So are they going to Terra Fairy? No, they're Terra Psychic on Indeedee. They clearly did not spec out their Terras very well in this team. So I feel kind of bad including them in the video here. But you should really put Terra... Oh, they immediately give up because I led Tyranitar Primarina. Well, that's fantastic. Okay, we have Tauros and Gengar on this team, as well as Alolan Ninetales and Frostmoth. I really don't think... There's not very many spread moves on this team. There's only, like, Rock Slide from Arcanine and Icy Wind from Ninetales. So I think I am going to do the Indeedee Hatterene lead. Let's keep Tyranitar and Primarina in the back, and we'll see what happens. Okay, we see Rillaboom Arcanine. Is Rillaboom faster? Okay, Rillaboom's faster. So we can pretty reliably count on them going for U-turn here with Rillaboom, but there's nothing to really stop us from just clicking Expanding Force here, so I think that's what I'm going to do. But let's follow me for the U-turn, and then click that Expanding Force. Rock Slide actually misses both, which is super lucky here. It doesn't change much if we don't flinch, but we do get the double KO with Hatterene immediately, which is phenomenal. And now, what beats this stuff? I guess Tauros in back here is bad, so let's bring in Primarina. Okay, they brought in Frostmoth and Ninetales. Do either of these have Freeze Dry? They do not, actually. Which means we're pretty free to just Hyper Voice, and wait, do they have anything that can... They don't have anything that can actually damage fire types, so I'm just going to Terra Fire, Mystical Fire into Frostmoth here. Blizzard goes up, but now that we're terrified, we resist it. Oh, they do freeze Hatterene, though. That's so annoying. Wait, hold on. They actually have a way back into this game now. Do we have to unthaw, pretty much? I mean, Tyranitar can probably still handle this. Actually, I probably should have swapped in Tyranitar that last turn, now that I think about it. Frostmoth is getting set up. Why is the Frostmoth getting set up? I should have definitely swapped in Tyranitar to keep them from setting up that Aurora Veil. Let's just bring in Tyranitar just to get the sand up. And really, really pray the Hatterene unthaws here. Blizzard actually does so much from Terra Ice Frostmoth. I think I'm about to lose just because of that freeze, which really stinks. Blizzard does have a chance to miss, though. We need the Blizzard to miss, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I definitely misplayed this team just because this is the last game, the last replay that I'm planning to include in the video. But miss. Bug Buzz can't miss. Okay, definitely threw that away. But don't worry, that's what the other two games are for. Okay, this time they led Ninetales Arcanine, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the shot that they're not going to Flare Blitz into Hatterene. I think my best move is swap in Tyranitar and click Expanding Force. Aurora Veil tries to go up but fails. So as long as this Rock Slide doesn't flinch Hatterene, then yeah, we're good. We took out Ninetales, which is pretty big here. Rillaboom is now coming in. Can bring back in Indeedee to get up Psychic Terrain. What do I really want gone here? I guess I really don't care if Hatterene gets KO'd now, I don't think. I'm gonna Terra into Grass and Rock Slide, and then swap Hatterene into Indeedee. And Rillaboom Terra Grasses, but we also Terra Grass. Hopefully we don't get flinched on Tyranitar. Indeedee goes down. But we missed the Arcanine, which is pretty much the same as the flinch here. Because now we have to bring in Primarina. And the Arcanine can just Flare Blitz into Tyranitar. Yeah, I think I just played this really badly despite getting really lucky at the start. So what if I Protect here and then Hyper Voice? So Primarina has so much HP that Rillaboom doesn't do enough to end itself. Okay. I don't think we would have lived the Flare Blitz, but let's find out. Yeah, now we wouldn't have lived it. Wow, I really thought I had this matchup handled, but I guess just bad play there. Alright, well, that was the Stream Sand team / Trick Room team. I like this team a lot. I think for the time that I was made, it was really good, and it can still be really good in this format. So if you're looking for a team to use, I'm going to have the team code on screen, and this will be available should be available throughout all of Reg H. And if you also want to earn one of these Pokemon, except for the Hatterenes, I'm out of the Hatterenes, but if you want to earn one of any of these other 5 Pokemon, where they're going to be doing streams where if you beat me in battle, then you get my Pokemon. And as you just saw, there is a way to beat this team. So if you can figure out how to beat 2 of the other teams that we'll be going over in the next 2 days, then you can get yourself a Pokemon. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next day, which is day 2 if you can't figure that out. Bye.